We, James, Josh and Joe, would like to introduce you to our documentary known as Defining Disability. With this documentary, we hope this will change your perception on what is the idea of a disability. Over the course of this documentary, you will meet three very distinct people who have been affected by a disability or who have had the experience of a disability. And remember, not all disabilities are visible.
Over 900,000 people are deaf in the UK, and 24,000 people use sign language as their main means of communication. To talk more in depth about how deafness can affect everyday living, you'll meet Adrian, who attends Leeds City College and is deaf. With the help of his signer, we'll lead you through the most prominent struggles when growing up, and how he has overcome these issues, as well as, in his own words, how to help those also living with a disability.
But there was a problem when I was born. My mum had a caesarean, and so when I was a baby, I stayed in the hospital in the incubator, and there was some damage to my body because of the light was too bright in the incubator, and so there was also a lack of water as well. I was too hot, and consequently this led to damage which affected my hearing, and after that I was deaf. When I was a child, I was fine. I was running around, I was active and doing silly things like normal. But there was a problem because with my family I was trying to communicate, and I was using gestures to communicate, but it was quite difficult. Later on I went to school and I was nervous. I felt very overwhelmed and worried, and later started to sign at school. This was in Africa. I was born in Africa, and there I was using sign language. I can't remember exactly what happened because it was a long time ago, but I started to learn to sign basically at school. Well, when I first moved to England, I was in London. We lived in London, and I was fine. I was at school. I was playing as normal. And mixing just as normal like other kids. But then I was in Africa from 1999 to 2003. Sorry, 2001. Went back to Africa, and then back to England again. Came back in 2003 or 2004, around that time. Back to London. And then after that, moved to Leeds, and I went to Cottingley School, Cottingley Primary School, and again I was nervous, and I had to learn a lot because there was different sign language here, obviously, British Sign Language, and that went on and things developed fine. I go with my family, my sister and my mum. We go in a group together. And also 3 years ago I started becoming independent. That was about 3 or 4 years ago. So at first I was with family, mum and sister, and 3 or 4 years ago I was fine, I was on my own. first I was getting involved with deaf people, and they were teasing me a bit and calling me stupid, but I wasn't bothered really about being teased. But about 7 years ago, I just started getting used to it, and I wasn't bothered really. I just carry on as normal. Well, before, a long time ago, there was a problem. Sorry, I forgot. I've lost my train of thought. So forget about before. Let's talk about more recent. Now, more recent. I do have problems with travel, and it's hard to. I find it hard to get anywhere on time, and getting a taxi is very expensive. So I have to use the bus because it's cheap. But the bus is always late, and I miss it. So perhaps feel that society doesn't accommodate as well as it could. Well, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, a long time ago I felt depressed and I was quite upset because a long time ago people were teasing me, and like at school I did feel upset about that. Like I said, that was in the past, whereas it's different now. Obviously I'm at college now, so things have settled down with my situation, and I'm not depressed anymore. I've just forgotten about the past, about being discriminated against and being upset because I was teased. And I'm comfortable. Life is fine, and I feel relaxed, and it's smooth. So I'm a lot more confident now. And people come up to me, whether they're hearing or deaf, anybody, and I'm fine, I can manage that. So I can get along with most people now. So it's different to when it was before. I don't know really about future goals. I like music, really like listening to music. I can hear some music, like with headphones on, but not singing. So maybe something in the future involved with music, because I can hear it when it's near or with headphones on, but when it's far away it's quite difficult. So possibly something with music, but within them restrictions. Well, there was a boy that I met, and he was Asian and he was deaf, and I explained to him just get on with things, and it did help him. So just reassure people, encourage them, support them.
In 2014, Lord Froude, a Conservative welfare minister, expressed his opinions on disabled people.
There is a group, and I know exactly, they're actually, as you say, they're not worth the full wage. And I'm going to go and think about that particularly. There is something we can do nationally without distorting anything, which actually, if someone wants to work at £2 an hour, it can be.
This quite rightly caused outrage amongst the public. However, he apologised a matter of hours later. Though this brings into question, considering how much society's views have changed over the years, if his comments are deemed to be acceptable in today's society.
In the United Kingdom, there are 11.6 million disabled people combined. 6.5 million of those have a physical disability, according to a 2012 UK government study. To speak more in depth about how physical disability affects their everyday life, you will meet Sam, who attends Leeds City College and uses an assisting communication device to help him speak. He will explain how his everyday life is affected by his disability and the advice he has to offer for those who suffer from a disability.
The usual stuff like can't take part in sport, socially I'm less active. Of course, because I can't speak I am less of a loud mouth. Yes, sadly, less as I get older, but yes, mainly down to a lack of education on disability. Go into the film industry next year and hopefully going to Leeds, Beckett to study filmmaking actually. Get a goal and just keep fighting for that.
Throughout the duration of this programme, you have seen various opinions of those who are either affected by a disability or those who have a rather strong opinion of disability. Now, you'll meet Dennis, one of our tutors at Leeds City College. Although he personally isn't affected by disability, he has a rather poignant encounter which he has experienced while at university, which can be best described as the ultimate wake-up call to the stigma surrounding disability.
Yes, very clearly. It wasn't actually until I came to work here that I came face to face with a disability of a serious nature. The young guy I taught whilst I was in printing, called Jason Miller, he lived in Skipton and he had cerebral palsy. Basically what had happened with him as a child, as a baby, he was born with his umbilical cord around his neck and it had starved his brain of oxygen. And so this is why his limbs were quite twisted and his movements were not normal really. And so, but he was determined that he was going to be a printer and that he was going to learn how to use a printing machine. And so over time I helped him to do that. And subsequently he did start his own printing press, and latterly one or two members of staff from the printing area of the college actually went into his company to help him. So yeah, it was a positive outcome. Yeah, that has to be with Jason as well, because the more I taught this guy and the more I saw his determination, the more I got interested in maybe other parts of his life, because we became friends, and I found myself being inquisitive really and wanting to know what had happened to him at school and what was available to him and what wasn't, and the things that he found easy and the things that he found difficult. And so through the friendship I had with him, I started to look at basically his life. And then I went to university and subsequently did a unit on disabilities, which taught me an awful lot of things, and I used Jason as the subject for it. I think looking back to that incident in 1997 when I was at uni, I think since then a lot has been done. ATMs we find on different levels now to accommodate various disabilities. A lot of buildings have had ramps put in. But we suffer from old buildings, and so it's going to take a time for all these things to be implemented. But certainly this, looking back on it, that was the biggest wake-up call I've ever had towards people with disabilities and the accessibility of services and so on. That hopefully is getting better as time goes on, but like I say, I still think there's quite a long way to go. About 6 of us took wheelchairs into the centre of Huddersfield in a van, went up a side street and got used to turning them round and so on, sat in them, put a blanket over our knees, and then we were given a series of questions on a sheet to go and find out. And a couple of mine were that I'd got to go to Marks and Spencer's and find the price of a pair of men's trousers. And when I got there, there was a whole series of steps up to the door of that shop, and I couldn't get in. And I sat there for ages waiting for somebody, hopefully, to say, would you like me to help you, sir? And they never did, so I came away from that one. I went down the pedestrian precinct to get some money out of an ATM, and when I got there, the ATM was up here at that time. It's a few years ago. The ATM was up here, and I couldn't get to that either. I had to go to a Chinese restaurant, no, Chinese takeaway, to get a menu, and the door opened the wrong way and I couldn't get in. I think, but those were the practical things, but I think sort of stigma raised its head, because as I went along the precinct, there was a lady with a young boy, maybe 4 years, 5 years old, and as she saw me coming towards them, she pulled this young chappie out of the way and said, "Don't go near him." And that really hurt, because I knew I could get out of that wheelchair anytime I wanted. But there are people that I met during that day, and of course around there all the time, who can't get out of the wheelchair and who have to suffer that sort of abuse. So yeah, it was a real wake-up call. And not only that, it was raining, and I had quite a light-coloured coat on, and when I'd done, my sleeves were black up the insides because of the rain and the dirt off the road that I picked up on my coat. So yeah, not a pleasant experience, but a very wide one, and one that I'll never forget. I suppose that was the biggest wake-up call I've ever had for disabilities.
Throughout the interviews I had filmed for this documentary, one word kept springing to mind, that being ignorance. However, with this documentary, we hope that the issue surrounding disability, even though our documentary goes into a slight proportion of the issue surrounding disability, will hopefully destigmatize the discrimination surrounding disability. And remember, disabled people are just like any other ordinary, normal person. It is also to be known that with this documentary, we had all hoped that the issue of discrimination surrounding disability in the future isn't what could be, but rather in this day and age, and indeed the future, is what should be.